What's one of the simplest ways to honor God? Takes very little effort on our part, yet benefits us greatly. It's the act of remembering. Hello, CCH family. Welcome to another Heart to Home devotional. My name is Kenny, and today I want to talk to you about preaching the gospel, but specifically preaching the gospel to ourselves. Romans 1:16 says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and also the Greek." Now, if you're watching this video, chances are you've heard that gospel at some point in time in your life, and the Holy Spirit gave you the measure of faith necessary to believe it. Unfortunately, some of us treat the gospel like a top secret code that gets us into some exclusive club. We tuck it away, never to share it or meditate on it for that sake. It served its purpose. I'm in the kingdom. I'm good to go. And of course, that goes against the commission given to us by Jesus in Mark 16:15, where Jesus said to them and us, "Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation." However, there's another practical application of the gospel in the daily life of a Christian's daily life. We can and should preach the gospel to ourselves daily. The Bible is full of feasts, rituals implemented by God for the purpose of remembrance. God understands that we tend to forget the wonderful things that He does in our lives, especially when everything's going well, good times. So today I want to encourage you to preach the gospel to yourself every day, multiple times a day if necessary. For me, this happens on my way to work in the car. And during this ride to work, I remind myself that I spent the majority of my life trying to be the king of my own throne, and I made a major mess of everything. I remind myself that I was on a direct path to eternal punishment, and yet God gave me several opportunities to accept the free gift of salvation. I remind myself that Jesus took on the punishment that I deserve, and that He died, was buried, and rose again. I remember that He conquered the power of sin and death, and that He sealed me with His Holy Spirit, and that there's no stronger seal than that. I remind myself that, quite frankly, I deserve hell. Romans 6:23 says I earned it fair and square. But I also remind myself that somewhere in His divine plan, He added me to His book of life, and that I'm pardoned from the penalties of my sin. I remind myself that I get to experience the benefits of His life, His death, and His resurrection for all of eternity. And I think you could see how this practice, if you will, can easily put things into proper perspective. All of a sudden, that coworker that drives you crazy is just another person in the mission field. That work deadline that you've been stressing about all week isn't so dire after all. That person who is tailgating you, causing you to think of some improper thoughts while you're trying to spend time with your Lord, well, that's still awful, but I'm working on it. Maybe the loneliness you've been experiencing is lessened as you realize that He's right there with you. He's got you this far. Maybe that hurtful conversation you just had with your spouse no longer stings. And at this point, all you want to do is pick up the phone and apologize. I'm sure we could all make our own list, but just watch as that list melts away after preaching the gospel to yourself. You see, we don't have to wait for communion to meditate on the gospel in remembrance of Him. And look what we are doing simultaneously. Ephesians 6 talks about putting on the whole armor of God and able to withstand. And as you can see, while meditating on the good news, I am putting on the armor of God one piece at a time. We know the fiery darts are coming. So let us honor God by remembering what he's done for us. And a byproduct of that will be equipping ourselves with this very important armor that is available to us. And it can be the difference between living a day in the flesh and living a day in the spirit. That's pleasing and honoring to him. So I thank you for your time, and I'll see you down the road.